And now, so we're going to now look at lunch. And I suppose the lunch section of today's session is going to really have two parts. We're going to look at a couple of really simple lunch dishes. Some of them are lunch dishes that you can prepare in advance and bring to school with you, bring on your picnic. Some of them maybe are things that you would maybe cook and eat. A number of them we're going to use the dry pan, and these are really simple things that you could do at home. All you need is the frying pan, and you don't need any oil or anything in it, but it's basically like making a kind of a number of versions of a grilled cheese or a pizza, and we're going to show you a couple of versions of that. Nice, really easy, simple ones that work really well with maybe a little bit of salad or some beans for your lunch, a nice hot lunch, but also can be used as a cold dish as well. So I'm going to hand over to Anne to talk a little bit about lunch.
Yeah, so what we have here, we've just got a selection, I suppose, of the carbohydrate element, I suppose, of the lunch, which is our bread rolls and our tortilla wraps here. And then we've also brought along, there's the meat, which would be our protein, and we have some salami there, and we have our cheese, which is going to give us our dairy, and it's also going to give us our protein. And we are going to use today as our barrier when we make a sandwich. We always have to put a waterproof barrier there so that the bread doesn't get soggy. And we're going to just use some cheese, some of these little triangle cheese here, which are nice to use. But also you could use mayonnaise, but sometimes kids don't like mayonnaise or they don't like the flavour of it. So therefore it can be one, you know, that you might be able to use. And then likewise butter, obviously. You can use your butter or your margarine. So with some of these here, like all of these, you can actually have a hot lunch with it really, because you can toast all of them. And that's one thing, sometimes kids don't maybe like the sandwich, but actually when you toast it, the cheese, if it's cheese or whatever, it melts and the flavour develops and they actually like that. So that can be really, really useful for them. And with the tortilla, we're going to do a little pizza and use that as the base rather than actually making the yeast base. But in the workbook you can actually make the base. Now we have a scone base and then you can have a yeast base. So again, that challenge bit can be there. So you can go from making the pizza using this to actually making your own simple dough to making a yeast based dough. Right, and again, depending on the age of the child or their ability, you can work along each one. Likewise, the pockets here, they can actually be also opened up and used as pizza, because you can put the tomato base on it with some cheese and with some ham and pop it under the toaster. So that's kind of the variety there. Then we have some salad. I spoke about the egg mayonnaise earlier on. So all that was the boiled egg, mashed up, a little bit of mayonnaise, a little bit of salt and pepper, and that's there. Now, not all kids will like that, so while they might like the scrambled egg or they might have a boiled egg, they mightn't necessarily like the egg mayonnaise. So again, that might be a challenge maybe even for them to try it or to taste it. The same with the coleslaw. Right, again, that's just your cabbage and your carrot grated. Some people might put a little bit of onion, or some people might put a bit of bacon into it and give you a bit of flavour with it. But again, that would be something that you'd have to work with the kids to see what would they actually like. So the idea with our lunch is that we have our lunch packed, maybe what they're familiar with going to school. So what is it you like to take into your lunchbox? But at the moment, I suppose at home, maybe they're trying different things for lunch during the week. So things like, like Billy said, the beans on toast, that can be really nutritious one for them. You can also do a very simple macaroni and cheese. We're not doing it here today because we don't have the oven, but the recipe is in the workbook and it's so simple. It's literally all the ingredients into a bowl, pop them into an oven-proof dish, into the oven, and 20 minutes later you have your macaroni and cheese. So again, pasta and cheese are very popular for kids. Again, going with the pasta, you could do a pasta salad. So cook up the pasta, add a little bit of pesto to it, a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and there you have a salad ready to go for them as well. And generally they like those flavours, So what we're going to do, I think Billy's going to start with the tortilla pizza. Yeah. So, do you want to? Yeah, sure, yeah.
So again, there's a number of different tortilla wraps that you can buy. These are a fairly standard version, but you can get them in whole wheat as well. You can get them seeded, you can get them flavoured, like a pesto and tomato based one. You can buy smaller versions for children. You can get they're mini tortilla wraps. And there's a number of ways of using these, and fundamentally they're a carrier. But what's very handy about them is you can fill them in a number of ways. You can fill them by rolling them, putting a filling in and rolling them, which is the way we'd be most commonly known. But also you can fill them by putting a filling in the centre and putting 2 flaps over it. And that's a burrito. So when you're making the burrito shape, that's what you're making as opposed to a roll, or, which is what we're going to do now, is use it as a really quick pizza. And the key with you, if you're doing this on the hob, you're going to use a dry pan. So you're not going to put anything into the pan, no oil or anything into the pan, and you want to have a lid for the pan, because basically what you're doing is you're creating a little small micro oven in the actual frying pan. So you have to keep an eye on the temperature, but you want your oven, your pan to get nice and hot. And as that heats up, the first thing I'm going to do is just pop in my tortilla wrap into the base of the pan and let that heat up. Now the dry heat, basically it's toasting the base of it. And then we're thinking about, well, what toppings do I want to put on it? And there's 2 types of pizzas. You can get a calzone pizza, and a calzone pizza is a pizza that's folded in half. And when you're making this type of pizza, to make that calzone model is actually really easy, because when you fold it over, it works really, really well. Or you just leave it as an open flat, and you can put absolutely any toppings at all that you like on it. We're going to make what a lot of people would know as a meat feast. So we're going to use a little bit of ham, a little bit of salami, or one of my favourite things is chorizo. So I really like that spicy meat that you can slice really thinly and put on top of the pizza base. So you can see the steam starting to build up on top here, and it's getting a little bit warmer, so you know then, you can see that it's actually starting to, and it becomes much softer and more pliable. But we don't want to put anything on it till it gets a little bit of heat in it. Now all I'm using here is a really simple passata sauce. Now, if you don't like this flavour of a sauce, you can use tomato ketchup.
Absolutely.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
If possible, try and buy the sugar-free version.
Yeah.
But this works just as well. You can buy it in cartons.
Or sometimes the tomato puree, you have the tube of tomato puree, they can like that as well, and they can put that on, squeeze it on.
Yeah.
And use the back of the spoon to spread it around.
You can add your own spices to this as well.
Yeah.
I would add garlic.
Exactly.
Crushed garlic and oregano and things
Yes,
to a sauce like that too.
Now again, all you're doing, like a really good pizza hasn't got a lot of toppings on it. It's nice and thin. So all I've done is I've turned it over. Once it started to get nice and crispy on the base, I just turned it over, and now all I'm doing is a little bit of tomato sauce. Turn that right down now, so the base just keeps warm. I'm adding my toppings on it, and again spread them nice and evenly over the top of your pizza. And a little bit of cheese. I'm using cheese for your sandwiches. Try and use grated cheese. You'll tend to use less of it. So it just, it goes a bit further, and it's a little bit healthier than using maybe large amounts of cheese, because keep an eye on the fat content cheese. So just putting a little bit of cheese on the top of that.
Is there a reason you put the cheese on last there, Billy?
Yeah, because normally the cheese is the topping and it protects all the rest of it. Sometimes if you put, especially in a normal pizza, if you put cheese first and then the toppings on, the toppings end up drying out.
Okay.
And the cheese acts as a protective barrier on top. And traditionally we would tend to use mozzarella cheese for pizza, but actually what I really like on pizza is buffalo mozzarella.
Yeah.
The white mozzarella works really well on pizza, it cooks down really nicely, and it's a really quick and easy way to, if you maybe are not as fond of the cheddar cheese or the stringy
and
mozzarella.
if that was a vegetarian option, you know, you could use that instead of your meat and things like that. And could you put mushrooms down, peppers?
Absolutely, anything at all you want on that. It's completely down to your own preference. Or you could even do that shocking thing, which amazes me, why anyone would do it.
Pineapple.
Put pineapple on their pizza.
Lovely.
No,
Hawaiian.
fruit salad is where the pineapple belongs. Pineapple has no place on pizza.
I think you're outnumbered here.
I think so.
Maybe so.
Totally.
It's like Marmite. You either love it or hate it. But no, I'm not a fan of it. So again, when you're at this section, remember you're using the frying pan as an oven. So you want to have a nice low heat underneath it, So what you're doing is, and with the oven on the lid on the top, you're building up heat inside, and then you can see that the cheese naturally starts to melt on top of it then. Now, there's two ways of actually serving that. We can serve it just like that now, and you can see it. It's there and it's ready. You can let it go a bit further, and I'll show you to make the calzone version. All you're going to do is take it and fold it in half. So it sits nicely in half like that, and we pop that then.
And I suppose, Billy, if you have an oven, you can just use it in the oven without doing what you've just done. Cook it in the oven.
So what we've done there now is you can see your calzone pizza, but you can make the very same version by taking this without the tomato sauce and just making a cheese and ham sandwich. So you make a cheese and ham calzone by just putting some cheese, some chopped ham, heating it on the pan, and again folding it in half in the very same way as we've done with this one. Whereas with this one, we have a little bit more with the tomato base inside of it, so they get that pizza taste, which is a nice addition to it as well. The other thing you can do in the very same way is, even if you take one of these, like any of the rolls, or 2 slices of bread, and you make the equivalent of grilled cheese. And again, with the grilled cheese, there's loads of different ways of making them, but fundamentally all you're going to do is place them into a dry pan, let the base of them heat up, in the very same way, add some toppings, fold it on top of each other, and then put a bit of weight on it. So what you're basically getting is a toasted sandwich, but it's done just in a dry pan. Is that okay? I'll hand it over to you then, Anne.
Yeah, perfect. So I suppose they're just some of the cooked options that we could do for our lunch. And like I said, the macaroni and cheese. So then to look at what we would do with our rolls. So again, all we're going to do with them is get the filling. And if you're doing this in school or with young people, you know, having them in the bowls like we have here, where they actually can make their lunch themselves, you know, and take the roll on whatever topping they like. And obviously, I suppose with COVID, we have to be careful with how that would happen in school. But that's really, you could have them, they all could have their own bowls like that. So what we'll do is, we'll just cut it like that. Okay, open it out, open it flat. Now again, you could, if you wanted to, you could even do garlic bread with this. You know, you could mix up butter and some garlic, and just put lots of garlic and butter on it, cover it in tin foil, and if you don't have an oven that's where you would put it, you could actually just pop it in the way Billy has done there until the actual butter and the garlic is melted into the bread. Right, so as I said, we're actually going to use the cream cheese as our barrier today, because our sandwich is always made up of the bread, the filling and the barrier, so no matter what way we look at it, that's kind of what the sandwich is going to look like. So what you do is you take, now if the student doesn't like this, obviously you can use the butter or the mayonnaise as you mentioned already. So you just pop, again, it will take most of it. You just spread it out like that, both sides, because you don't want the bread to go soggy. And that's the reason why that you'll actually put it on both sides of the bread. And while I'm using a sharp knife here, if you have a butter knife, that obviously will make it easier, in fact, to actually spread it. And then what you're going to do then is you're actually going to get the students then to assemble it. So obviously cheese and ham is kind of a classic one really. So all you do there is you can get your slice of ham, they can pop that in there like that, right? And then you can get some cheese, some grated cheese, and just sprinkle that over the top there. And it can just be as simple as cheese and ham. And sometimes you find with the younger kids, that's what they actually like, is just the simple ham or plain cheese, and they won't want any of the salads in it, right? Whereas if you have the older age group, the chances are that they will probably have some coleslaw or something in the actual sandwich. So that's one, and that's an easy one, and it also travels quite well. So when we're looking at our picnic, this is easy to wrap up, and actually it stays quite intact until we actually get to destination for our picnic. The other one then is the bat, and I know Billy's doing the bat there, but we can also look at doing the bat with the coleslaw. And obviously if you have lettuce or anything like that, you can use that with the salads as well. Again, you know, taking the student on a shopping trip with regard to what would you like to have in your lunch can be a great way of introducing other ingredients to them, right? So in this one then, maybe we can take some of the pepperoni and pop that in there like that, and then if we put some coleslaw with that one, alright, just to show that maybe the older age group sometimes can have a greater I suppose variety in relation to what they'll actually eat or what they'll actually like, where it would probably be unlikely that your 5 or 6 year old would eat this one, whereas their chances are they're going to eat that one there.
And there's that
right? And then we have this one here, which has got our...
It's just a toasted cheese.
Toasted cheese, right? And again, that is part of our hot lunch, but we can just pop it there, and again you'll find that the younger age group, or all age groups probably would like that one in fact. Then we have the pita bread. So the pita bread, once it's toasted, you know, you open it, you can open it, and then you can actually fill the pocket, right? So you just open it out, and then you can pop in your cheese or whatever it is filling that they actually want. You can also, what I find the pita bread is great for, and also for the picnic, is for hummus. Now either you can make your own or you can buy it, and cutting this into little strips like that for them, and then they're able to dip into the hummus, and generally you'll find that they actually do like the hummus, and it's an easy one for them to actually have for their lunch.
And very high in protein.
Yeah. So, and again, you can get the different flavoured ones, but generally you'll probably find that they actually like just the plain hummus, no flavourings really, you know. But you can obviously add your chilli, and you can add more garlic to it if you wanted to do that, do you know what I mean? So I mean, they would be just some of the very basic ones, but at the same time I think ones that you can easily make in school. And the idea being, I suppose, that they might try different ones, and then they might try the cooked ones as well that are in the workbook. That would be really nice to try the macaroni and cheese, to try the pasta salad, I think.
But also you can, it's a basic skill, and the key is to add then to it other fillings that you might like, and also again building, trying, as Anne said, going on a shopping market trip, trying a few different bits and pieces, trying maybe some different meats, or if maybe they're not so sure about the ham, maybe chopping it up and mixing it in with the cheese, and then putting it in so they're not getting as large pieces in each individual mouthful.
Or even trying different cheeses, that can be great, you know, as well, for them to actually explore the different flavours of the cheese that maybe they wouldn't normally try. And that can be something that's, you know, just served with a little bit of, I suppose, just some of their meats, and, you know, do something like that, a little tapas thing for them as well, if they wanted to do that. And then
are these the kinds of things that will work for the picnic?
Yeah, totally. I mean, they're the things really that we're looking at now, transferring into the picnic to be able to take it, you know, but we have to be very careful of food safety and hygiene, particularly when we're travelling with food. Now, some of it, the dairy and the meat and things like that, obviously, you know, I mean, you would have a risk there of food poisoning because you're taking them away from the cold temperature that they actually need to be in. But what you can do with that is you can get the ice packs. So when we look at the picnic basket, or maybe it is your rucksack, or however it is you're taking your picnic with you, if you have the actual ice packs, then putting those kind of foods near it. Sometimes one of the best things actually with the picnic is to actually take everything individually. So you bring your bread, you bring your meat, bring your fillings or whatever, and actually make the sandwiches there and then, right? Now that probably works fine if there's only a small number, but if you have a lot of kids with you or whatever, then maybe doing something like that isn't really feasible. And then like that you might have, if it is in the forest or it's near the beach, where the flies and the bugs, and you know, that can be off-putting as well for people. But that is an option actually. Taking the hot, because of what you've done there, that can be eaten cold as well, you see. So, you know, if you wrap that in tin foil and take it into your, you know, it should be fine for the 2 hours. They normally say around 2 hours between the food when you're taking it away from the fridge and when you actually eat it.
What can be really helpful is, you know, the little small juice containers?
Yes.
You can freeze those and you put those in your picnic bag then, and they act like a little block of ice. And they slowly thaw out then, and over that couple of hours they keep everything in your bag nice and cool, and individually wrapping things in your bags and keeps the moisture levels.
And even with the melons that we did earlier for breakfast, even with those, if you put them in the fridge, and they can actually serve dual purpose then, because they can be that ice piece and also you get to eat them.
Okay.
You know?
Perfect.